Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Gallant, host of Cape Conversations. I'm here today in Town Hall to discuss the reconstruction of the Boardwalk and answer a lot of questions that you may have. So I'm with two terrific people, and they're going to introduce themselves.
I'm Sam Jensen, Assistant Town Engineer.
Dave DeConto, Director of Natural Resources.
Excellent. We're going to talk about the resiliency and the elevations of the boardwalk today. So a question that I'm going to put together as one question, but it's actually kind of two. How much higher will the boardwalk be, and why does it need to increase in elevation?
Sure. Let's see, the current boardwalk varies in elevation from approximately elevation 7 to elevation 10 to 10.5, depending on where you are. And there's some variation in the height of the boardwalk. First of all, across the bridge, obviously, because it's arched. But then the main span of it that crosses the marsh has some undulations in it. The 4x4 timber posts that support the boardwalk, they don't provide a lot of resistance, particularly for storm surges. And so there's been a lot of displacement that's happened over the years. And so that main span of the boardwalk varies in elevation from between 7 to actually over elevation 10. And the proposed design that GEI has prepared would then have the main span be raised to elevation 12. And so that results in roughly a 4 to 5 foot elevation increase over the marsh. And then we would have a small arch over Mill Creek, where the footbridge is now. That would be raised to approximately elevation 13. So that would be like a 2.5 foot elevation rise.
Well, can it be lower?
Well, our experts have advised us strongly against that because of considerations due to sea level rise and increasing storm frequency. Additionally, considerations for salt marsh habitat. There's some real stringent regulations that I think Dave DeConto may be able to speak to better than me. But what that boils down to is there's a ratio of 1.5 times the width of the boardwalk is required for elevation separation over the marsh surface. Since a 6 foot wide boardwalk is proposed, we would need to have clear space of approximately 9 feet over the marsh.
I see.
Can I jump in on that?
Absolutely.
So just to sort of add to that, these requirements that we're talking about that are required by the federal and state regulators, height over the salt marsh so that we don't shade the grass and kill the marsh, distance over flooding, that type of thing, spacing on the boards, railings. These are all things that are required now of people that have private docks along the coastline. So it's not anything new. This is something that is required by the regulators. And if we try to lower our design, we're going to get into a mitigation type situation with these regulators, which may or may not be able to be negotiated. Right. And it would come with a price tag of money. Right. So this is nothing different than what is required of the average home, we'll call it the average home dock. And keep in mind, these home docks are the type of docks where they get very little use compared to the boardwalk. You know, you're talking about a family that probably goes out on the dock once a week to go to the boat, maybe have family and friends for a short period of time during the summer, where the boardwalk is used year-round. Hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, you know, over a course of a week throughout the year. So we're talking about a much higher use and a much higher resiliency that needs to be built into this compared to the home docks.
So how does this height, though, this height of the boardwalk protect the eelgrass and the marsh, or does it?
So the height we're talking about that is required because of shading of the, you know, it has to be over a certain height over the salt marsh grass. If you don't have that height so that sunlight can get in and water can get in, you know, underneath to flow correctly, right, you will end up with killing the grass and then a deterioration of the salt marsh. Right now, we have one of the most healthiest estuaries on the Cape. We've found that out through our many studies that we've done over the last 3 to 5 years through grants from the state on climate change, and also a lot of the work that we've done with beach resiliency, trying to restore the barrier beach at Town Neck.
So this is the big question everybody asks. My kids did it. I've never done it. My grandkids have done it. Will they still be able to jump off the boardwalk, and will they be able to take a chicken leg and go look for crabs?
Absolutely. We're not looking to prohibit any of those activities whatsoever. As to whether or not you want to jump off a bridge, that's going to be, your own decision.
Well, I agree with you there because I don't like heights. But
Right. But it's, we're not looking to prohibit those activities whatsoever. Folks that still want to jump off the bridge will be able to jump off the bridge. Hopefully, they're very careful to do that at high tide, just as now. As far as crabbing goes, they could might need a longer string to crab over the line, over the railing.
Okay, great. Thank you for clearing that up, because that's been a big question, as you well know. And will the boardwalk be protected from future storms, or is this just we're going to build it and it's going to get swept away?
So I'll take that one, Sam. So right now, with the science that we have and the studies that we've done, the boardwalk, if we wanted to try to keep the boardwalk out of all possible storms that we think may happen, and again, it's may happen. We don't, nobody has a crystal ball. We know that sea level is rising. We know that the storms have gotten more frequent and with more ferocity. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to be proactive and keep the boardwalk not out of all possible storms, but keep them out of as many storms as possible. This is about resiliency, and resiliency doesn't mean that we completely protect it. It means you lessen as much as you can the severity and the boardwalk itself as far as its vulnerability to these events. I mean, I think I need to really address something here. There's a question that keeps coming up about, well, if our roads are going to be 3 or 4 feet underwater in 50 years, then why are we even bothering? Well, first of all, that's a fatalistic attitude that I refuse to take. I'm involved in climate change planning for the town because I'm an optimist.
Right.
And to say that, it's such a misunderstanding of science. From fluid dynamics to flooding to topography to climate science in general. We're not talking about a wall of water of 3 to 4 feet in 50 years. This is going to be slowly coming up in probably increments that you're going to see either very small or very large. But what we do know is we do know that these storms are going to be coming with more ferocity. We've been very lucky the last few years where we haven't seen these big damaging storms like we had in 15, 17, 18, even 91, where we had large chunks of ice coming into the marsh. And it's not just the wave action, it's the ice action that hits on the structure and deteriorates it. We do know that we're going to be facing some of these things, so the town has taken the studies to do assessment of these vulnerabilities, and we're looking at short-term and long-term. Part of it will be maybe raising some of the roads at some point. But keep in mind, a roadway, when it's inundated with water, is not the same as a structure like this. Right. A roadway could take, we've seen flooded roads before. The water dissipates, and the roadway, for the most part, is left unscathed. Whereas this, if it's inundated for a certain period of time, especially if you have ice, especially if you have debris that's in the estuary, knocking against it constantly over time during a storm, that will deteriorate very quickly.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much. It's been great, and we'll talk to you next time about a couple of other questions.